We're about to break down Mel Kiper's latest 2025 NFL Draft Big Board. Before we get into that, if you want more NFL Draft YouTube videos year-round, you're in the right spot. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. Let's break down Mel's top 25, and there shouldn't be much of a surprise. At number 1, Travis Hunter, no change in the last couple editions of Mel's Big Board. Wide receiver, Mel would have him number 1. Cornerback, Mel would have him number 2 among those positions. He just so happens to do both at a pretty damn high level, and will at least get snaps, I suspect, on both sides of the ball in the NFL. Number 2 is Will Johnson, the Michigan corner. Now, been a bit banged up as of late with lower body injury. Very great size, good athlete. I think the ball skills are there too. Had the pick 6 against Fresno State, was like 86 yards or something from that angle. Very impressed by what Johnson has done in his time in the NFL or in college football. He's been good since day one. In a regular class, he'd still be a top 5 guy, and maybe a down top end class, he's number 2. Number 3, Abdul Carter out of Penn State. Now, we'll list the positions as Mel lists them. When he puts outside linebacker, he means edge rusher. I don't know why he does it that way, so be it. Carter's had a really couple good games in a row, getting a ton of pressures and sacks as well. Still a bit of a developmental piece, but a very impactful football player for the Nittany Lions. Number 4, Mykel Williams out of Georgia, who is even more of an upside project play than Abdul Carter is. Because he missed some time with an ankle sprain earlier this year, the production is certainly not there at this time. This is a little bit, he's not quite as big, I don't think, at least the measure-wise, as Trayvon Walker, but that's kind of what you're running into here with Williams out of Georgia. More defensive players. Mason Graham at number 5 here out of Michigan. The production isn't great because Michigan's bad on defense this year, but the impact when he gets chances to show what he can do is very impressive. There might be some fan bases out there who are traumatized by a Michigan defensive lineman early, but you shouldn't be. This is a very, very good interior defensive line prospect. The first pure offensive player on Mel's Big Board, number 6, Kelvin Banks. There are arm length concerns. Some teams might view him more as a guard. He hasn't really gotten beat that much so far this season. I agree with Mel here. He should be the number 1 offensive tackle or guard, if you want to put him there, in this year's NFL draft class. Then the first quarterback, number 7, Shedeur Sanders, who, a little funny to see Mel this time last year saying Shedeur is a guaranteed number 1 pick and has him at 7 on his big board now. Even though I think Shedeur has been better. I think there was some ESPN creative, narrative-driven hype that was a bit overblown last year. He holds the ball a bit too long. The arm strength and athletic ability are not top end, but he's very accurate. I think in this year's class, he is my number 1 QB. There's another guy we'll get to that is in that conversation as well. But in a down quarterback class, I think Shedeur is going to go pretty early in round 1, as long as he checks off all the boxes in the pre-draft meeting, interview, intangible side. So is Shedeur the best quarterback prospect in this year's NFL draft? Why for yes and for no? Let me know in the comment section of today's video, especially the ad comes here on YouTube. Nic Scourton out of Texas A&M, 6'4", 285. I'd like to see him trim down just a little bit, but he's been very productive against the run, and if you can shed 10-ish, 15-ish pounds and test better, that would help his draft stock quite a bit. Another defensive player, very common trend on this list. Malaki Starks, I think has been really good over the course of his college career. Maybe not quite as impactful this year, but there's probably some don't throw at Starks stuff, especially after what we saw in week 1 against Clemson going on there. Safeties typically don't go that early in the NFL draft. I mean, look how far Brian Branch fell when he was, I think, a pretty clear-cut top 10 guy. Starks is a rangy free safety option, though. Will probably still go round 1, and probably the top half, too. Ashton Jeanty, number 10 on this list. I almost never say to people, don't watch the highlights. It's bad because you're only getting the positives and you don't see some of the downsides and the negatives. And I can make a highlight reel of any player look great. I can make Ryan Leaf look like the greatest NFL quarterback ever. We knew he was terrible. You could probably just watch the highlights for Ashton Jeanty because it's like every play is a highlight almost. He has been wildly impactful on the ground. He's trending towards 2,000 yards this season. Incredible rate of forced missed tackles, even against Oregon. The positional value stuff is fine. The talent is undeniable. Number 11, Cam Ward. He is not going to be for everybody. I do want to emphasize that. If you are okay with someone not always playing on time and holding the ball longer than they maybe should and making some questionable decisions but generating big plays, being the anti-Daniel Jones, Cam Ward's your dude. He is a gunslinger. That's not going to be for everyone. Like, that might not actually be a great fit for, what Shanahan, for example, wants in his coaching tree once. But if you're okay with, I think the Giants stand out to me here, assuming it's Brian Dable, and allowing some, double-edged sword play, Cam Ward is a really good option. Another Georgia player, Jalon Walker, who has had a massive breakout season this year. I think he's going to be best as an edge rusher. You can, put him in. Not many teams use pure 3-4 anymore. It's kind of outdated. It's all nickel these days. But, as the fifth defensive lineman on the outside, he can drop into coverage. He can play off ball. I think he's at his best, though, moving downhill and attacking. You deploy him like that, I think good things will happen in the NFL for him. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. They also are the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So your lineups stay in play even if one of your players ends up getting injured. The player goes down the first half, does not return. Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. You can do college football. You can do professional football as well. Here's one of the my boy Chase Sr.'s Prize Picks slates this week. Christian McCaffrey, more than yards on the ground, and maybe a letdown game for Christian Watson. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That $50 is guaranteed. You don't even need to win to get the $50. You just got to play that first $5 lineup and use code CLNS at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Ted McMillan, who is to an extent kind of like a skinnier Mike Evans, which not many players have that profile. T. Higgins kind of in a similar range there. But he does some really good stuff for a guy that you think, you see tall guy, you think like leggy, a little bit stiff. Hasn't always been the case. He's actually very fluid. With the way he's played this year and the Arizona offense being F-it, T-Mac down there somewhere, he's my number one receiver as well. I was very excited for James Pearce this year. Coming out of Tennessee, I thought he'd have a huge season, big-time breakout year. Hasn't really happened yet. I thought he was a little bit better last season. The juice is still there, but maybe it's in part because he played like 60 snaps in the team's first 3 games because they were destroying everybody. The run stopping is a real question mark. You're kind of the downside concern is, or upside is, hey, you get this great athletic pass rusher. Downside is you end up with like a situational pass rusher, and he can't be an every down player for you. Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. Now, if you have concerns over previous defensive line picks from Michigan, this can make a little bit more sense. The production hasn't been nearly as good, but this is a freaky athlete. You don't see 340-pound defensive tackles chasing down running backs who are going to run in the 4.4s. That happens with Grant. That type of player almost always gets drafted in round 1. We have a new entry on Mel's big board, Jihad Campbell, who I'm just going to you don't want to be a box score scouter, etc. That's not exactly a good way of going about doing things. But the stat sheet this year for Campbell is objectively funny in like a good way. He has 85 tackles this year. He has 10 TFLs, 5 sacks, a pick, 2 pass breakups, and 2 forced fumbles. He's doing everything for Alabama. The production he's put up this year is nothing short of incredible. It is very rare to see a player lead a team in tackles for loss, and sacks. And he's also 1 interception away from leading the team in interceptions too. tying for the team lead, but still. That's impressive. I don't know if Bama gets a first-round pick at linebacker this year. We had all kind of thought, Deontay Lawson's going to be linebacker 1. Campbell's broken out in very impressive fashion. He is the Tide's maybe best or second best chance. Their guy in a second here to get a first-round pick this year. So do the Crimson Tide get one? They don't have the same top-end talent they've had in years past. 1 for yes, 0 for no. Number 17, Derek Harmon out of Oregon, who has really kind of jumped up this year, transferred over from Michigan State. Only a couple of sacks, but really high pressure rates there. Oregon has got some inside-outside flex. Kind of like, I'm hesitant to even get the comparison. You can get like Cam Hayward here. I don't think you're going to get actual Cam Hayward, but like Cam Hayward light of like DE, DT stuff. Very intrigued by his game. Luther Burden's stock has dipped a bit this year because Missouri's bad. Well, they're not bad, but they're not very good offense. Let's put it that way. I don't know how they're still ranked in the CFP. Like, they just SEC bias or whatever. But get the ball in his hands and good things can happen. And I think that'll fit very well as a number 2 in the NFL. Will Campbell out of LSU. This might be a guard. There are arm length concerns here. Hasn't been as good as I hoped he was going to be this year. I don't think he or Banks have been like elite, true, dominant players. But I do think Banks over Campbell makes sense. Siobhan Revell Jr. out of ECU. Could have been top 15 or higher on Mel's board if he didn't suffer a torn ACL like 3 games into this year's campaign. But the talent, the size, the ability are all very, very impressive. Ariante Ursary, Minnesota has another giant offensive tackle. What are the odds on that front there? Listed at 6'6", 330. Powerful football player, obviously. Huge frame. In a class that has some question marks around who are the true, like, obvious tackles, Ursary would probably sneak in the back end of round 1. Benjamin Morrison at a Notre Dame. I think there are some concerns about the top-end speed. I think most concerning is the hip injury he suffered to end his campaign early. That is going to have to get vetted at the NFL Combine. We got back-to-back tight ends here. How about that? Tyler Warren, who's super fun, and then Colston Loveland, whose production has been dropped a little bit because Michigan's quarterback play has been a disaster class. Tyler Warren has done a little bit of everything so far this year for Penn State. It is let's get the ball into the hands of our best player. 67 catches, 808 yards, 5 touchdowns this year. That's incredible production for a tight end. Also has 16 carries for 157 yards and 4 scores. He's going to blow by the 1,000 yards from scrimmage mark. He's really fun. Loveland is a good athlete too, but the quarterback play has kind of hurt him a little bit. Josh Simmons, you got 3 guys on this back end that have all suffered season-ending injuries. I don't know what his draft stock is going to be. He played right tackle at San Diego State, did a great job at left tackle this past year for the Buckeyes before getting hurt, but you got like a half season of sample size. That makes it tricky to figure out where he ends up going. Who did Mel Kiper leave off of his 2025 NFL Draft Big Board? I'll mention some names here in just a second, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments of today's show. Some other top prospects I want to mention. Mel's number 3 quarterback, I'll put him on here, Jalen Milroe. In a down quarterback class, the speed and arm strength are going to intrigue teams. Anthony Richardson went top 5, and Milroe has been far more productive in college football. Elike Omenor is one of my guys. I'm a huge fan of his game. Mel had him at number 8 on his list, but I think we're sleeping on him. Emory Jones had some round 1 buzz early. Also hasn't been quite as good this year for LSU. Mel's got him number 6 among offensive tackles. He really might be a guard in the NFL. I almost put Cam Williams on here. I think we are sleeping on him. With his athletic traits, that's a guy that often goes in the back end at minimum of round 1. Same with Deion Walker, who Mel's got him at number 7 on his list. The play's been a little inconsistent this year. He's a bit of a weird tweener where he plays really tall, and that's tough when you're 6'6", 345, but he also moves stupid well for someone that size. And then Shamar Stewart, who I know Dane Brugler is a huge fan of, number 4 on Mel's big board among defensive ends because he doesn't do TEs and outside linebackers together, but he's got potential round 1 ability as well.